Hi everyone, welcome to Life, Loss and Hope. My name is Sarah Bell. Thank you for joining us today. Today I'm going to be talking about grief, loneliness, and the layers there that are deeper than those that people see. Thank you for subscribing, for sharing, and for liking our videos, and please continue to support. Loneliness and grief is a distressing emotional response to the loss, the isolation, and is often accompanied by a lack of connection and intimacy. Loneliness and solitude overlap, and yet loneliness is distinct from solitude. Solitude is simply the state of being apart from others, while grief, loneliness, is way more than just being physically apart from our loved one, because it's commonly felt even acutely when we're surrounded by others. And we often experience an even deeper and pervasive loneliness that goes way beyond the absence of their physical presence. In my experience of working with bereaved people, they unequivocally say that loneliness is the most significant and ongoing challenge after the loss of a spouse, a partner, or another close loved one. And research shows that approximately 85% of people have said it's the worst aspect of grief. So I'm just going to read you a short extract from The Grieving Heart. I feel alone. They said they would be there for me. They looked me in the eye and sent me the message that I could count on them. At least that's what I heard. But they haven't called, visited, emailed, or even attempted to make contact. It's like they've just vanished. If I happen to run into them, a look goes across their face that resembles fear. Is there something wrong with me? And when did I become so scary? I wonder what they're thinking. Am I that uncomfortable to even be around? Sometimes I'm scared to go out. Bursts of grief slam me at unpredictable times, and I find myself weeping in the strangest of places. I feel like an embarrassment to myself and others. And some have just pulled away. Others try to fix me, and many give me advice. Everyone wants me to feel better and move on, but the whole of my heart is aching. Nothing is the same. Expectations, hopes, and dreams have disappeared, and I sense my relationships changing. Sometimes I feel like my grief is some kind of disease. I hadn't counted on that pain of loneliness too. So please be patient with me. I'm grieving. So we know that there is a truth. There is a truth that grief is lonely. It's the kind of loneliness and isolation, I think, that stems from the lack of an authentic relationship that usually only evolves with those closest unions, particularly, but not exclusively, in marriage and partnership. Loneliness strikes when we feel misunderstood, judged, or belittled. It creeps in when we sense that our hearts are at a different place from those around us. Loss shakes us, and the mind spins while the heart frantically searches for solid ground in the midst of what feels like a free fall. So grief is multi-layered, and the problem is that our society, friends and family often focus on the one outward aspect of grief, loneliness, which ironically exacerbates that feeling of being misunderstood and isolated. So I'm going to discuss some deeper layers of grief, loneliness, in an attempt for you and those around you to understand the depth and complexity of this. It's not a comprehensive list, but it's just an attempt to unpack those different layers of loneliness and the impact that it has on us ongoing as we grieve. So firstly, I think the perception is that the absence of the physical person is the thing that makes us most lonely. But really all that does is it scratches the obvious surface layer of a multitude of other things. It's true, of course, when someone dies, their physical presence is absent, and that's massive and creates a certain void that no one else can fill. Everything that we do is a reminder of their absence, meal times, bedtimes, and every other daily activity. Often people tell me that they can't even face sleeping in the same bed that they shared with their spouse or partner. It's just too difficult, too painful, too big. And yet other people tell me that they sleep in the familiar curve on the side of the bed where their partner slept, as they feel safe in that imprint where they lay, and that brings them comfort. The loneliness of eating alone, setting one place instead of two, an empty chair at the table, are daily painful reminders that we're on our own now. And then there's the physical touch, the hand to hold, the hug, the kiss, the intimacy. Those things vanish without the person that we love the most. And it's strange, isn't it, that when they were alive, we could be in the house, our other half could be in the garden or upstairs, and we would feel that safety and comfort. There was an unspoken reassurance that they were somewhere, even if they were out of sight, even if they were away working or somewhere else in the world, they were there. But after they die, that anchor of safety is gone and we feel unhinged. The world feels unsafe, the house is empty and feels deafeningly quiet. Heart loneliness is another layer of acute loneliness that we feel after the death of another half. It can feel like we've been ripped in two and that a part of you is missing. And to quote David Kessler, we can feel like half a pair of scissors. Suddenly, the person that really gets you has gone forever. Having someone who truly understands you, who can read your thoughts, can finish your sentences, knows your expressions, knows your nuances, your faults and your flaws, that shares memories, that you can hold a comfortable silence with, that is your sounding board, who is your person that compliments you, sharpens you. That person has gone and you lose a rare and beautiful gift of intimacy and connection. That person we feel really at home with, who can see us naked physically, emotionally. I saw a quote that said, in grief, we're not homesick for a home, but for a person, and that deeply resonated. That person who understands your craziness, your anger, your emotions, who knows your history, and yet who says, I love you, I've got your back. And that person who's been your invisible shield, who has protected you in 1,000 battles that no one else has seen, has gone. Your person who has been your authentic go-to cannot be replaced by another. A third layer of loneliness that people share with me is practical. It's a practical kind of loneliness. When we're in relationships, we have shared tasks, we assume different roles and responsibilities. But when you're on your own, suddenly you've got to pick up everything, which is completely daunting and overwhelming. There's a myriad of extra paperwork after a loss, in addition to the usual everyday administration for the house, the car, and life. Some people tell me they've never mastered things like car insurance, taxing a car, cooking, gardening, washing, remembering family birthdays, and organising and planning holidays. But suddenly, all these things are yours. And even though our family and friends can help, it exacerbates our loneliness and exhaustion because we still have the lion's share of that, and it can leave us frozen like a rabbit in a headlight, unable to do even simple chores. Life was always meant to be a shared activity as we mutually support each other within family, friends and community. We were never meant to do life alone. The next layer I want to talk about is the cognitive loneliness that people feel when they're grieving. And what I mean by this is the demands on our mind and our thinking, the mountain of decisions that has to be made every day. And when you think about it, there's so many that we make without thinking, small, medium and big. We make them constantly throughout the day. Decisions about what to eat, what to wear, how to decorate, where to go on holiday, what to buy for gifts for family, birthdays and friends, just to name a few. And even if one person in a relationship has done those things, we generally kind of talk it over with our other half, and perhaps we get a nod or a yes, that's a good idea, or no, but it feels like we're still making a shared decision. And that's helpful. it feels still like a joint decision, but when you're on your own, you have to do it all yourself. After a death, you have to make also decisions alone about the family home, the finances, whether to move or not, what to do with their possessions. There's just so many decisions that you have to make without the person who knew you best, who shared your dream, your values, and your unique life experiences. A third layer in grief loneliness can be called perhaps a spiritual loneliness. Maybe you felt close to God and now you wonder why this has happened, or you feel angry with God, or even just distance, completely distant from His presence. Often people tell me they find it's hard to go to church as they see other happy couples, and it makes them feel even more isolated, or perhaps forced to wear a mask of positivity. It can also make you feel jealous, and then that you're a bad person for having those thoughts. And that is normal and natural to feel jealous of others' happiness and togetherness, because it reminds you of what and who you are missing. After loss, I personally felt stripped bare emotionally when I went to church, because I would always cry, and I was deeply moved and touched by love and comfort in the presence of the Lord, which was helpful, but sometimes embarrassing or even too exhausting. And frequently people say that they haven't got the energy or concentration to perhaps read the Bible as they used to, and that can make them also feel disconnected from their faith and their anchor. But that again is normal, because we're depleted when we're grieving. And so I sometimes used to say a simple verse when I was exhausted, something like, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." Another layer of grief loneliness is what I refer to as a couples or a social loneliness. And here's the thing, how do we be a single person in a couple's world? After all, being part of a marriage is something that we take for granted until it's no longer there. Friendships with other couples can change, and often those closest to us can drift away. And we too may feel it's too painful to be in their company. And that's okay too. Sometimes we can feel like a threat, or we're perceived as a threat, misunderstood, or like a reminder of their worst nightmare. And I remember going for dinner with other couples as a single person, and it really just broke my heart. I felt lonelier than if I'd stayed at home on my own. And my husband told me that after his wife had died, that well-meaning friends would invite him for dinner and then told him they'd invited another single lady. And he found that deeply distressing and difficult and wanted to leave as soon as possible. Holidays can be very difficult also to navigate when you're on your own, adding another feeling of social isolation. Even accommodation is geared to two people sharing, and then paying a single occupancy charge can sting the heart greatly. And it's not necessarily about the money, it just reinforces that painful fact that you're on your own. The sixth layer of grief loneliness that I've been thinking about is the language connected with your change of status and identity. And I remember well the first time I had to fill out a form in a shop, and there were all of those boxes that you had to complete with your name, your status, etc. And I just couldn't do it. I froze in a wave of utter grief, and I left in tears. And somehow ticking that box of single or another box felt like the betrayal of my other half. It felt like I was agreeing to something I never wanted, because I still felt married, and many people do after a death of a husband or wife, or even after divorce. It is normal, even when we understand logically that our vows have said till death do us part, we still feel married. We can still feel that, and it's a dagger to the heart. The seventh layer of loneliness is what I call occasion or future loneliness. Every future event that we used to look forward to enjoying as a couple now has to be faced on your own. So the weddings, the anniversaries, the graduations, the big birthdays, Christmas, which we used to anticipate with joy, are now anticipated with fear and dread. Because even when we go to those things and we're surrounded by other people, they can trigger those intense feelings of longing, sadness, and missing our loved one. So it can feel like the joy of the future has been stolen from us, and that can also make you feel quite angry. Remember, it is okay to be angry. It's part of grief. And our family and friends can make assumptions about our loneliness, trying to fix it, judge it, and think that other things will replace your other half. And people said to me that if I focused on my grown-up children, the grandchildren, I got a dog and a laptop, I moved to a small bungalow, that I'd be fine. But the truth is, having a pet, a new house, or even filling our life with activity will not replace our loved one. Admittedly, all these things can help and temporarily alleviate feelings of being lonely, but there is still an empty house, bed, and table to come back to. Those around us can be massively supportive, and for that we are deeply grateful, but it can only fill a fraction of the ache of loneliness for the person we are missing. I just think that if people could perhaps recognise the complexity of the layers of loss and the ensuing loneliness, that it may help them understand and be less judgmental on the ache of the grieving heart for the one person who fully sees you, hears you, knows you, and yet still loves you unconditionally. The person that you can be fully authentic with and completely relaxed with to be yourself. So what do we do when we're grieving and most likely struggling with this pain of loneliness? Firstly, we don't need people to fix us or try to make it better, because they can't. But wouldn't it be great if those closest to us were aware of the pain and supported us through the loneliness when it hit? And after all, pain is a natural part of grief and healing. And we need people we can be safe with, who accept us just where we are without expectation. And as others accept us, perhaps we can accept ourselves. You may want to consider counselling, grief groups, as bereavement support is a lifeline, as you're with others who share the journey of loss. Being in nature, walking, or sitting in the beauty of creation can feel like medicine. Self-care is important, doing the things that nurture you, and resting is key. So please share this video with friends and family so that it can give them a different perspective and insight into your loss and the complexity and the enormity of your grief loneliness. People don't know what they don't know, and they're not mind readers, and often it's too hard for us to articulate how we are feeling. So share this with those that care for you. And remember, it won't always be so intense and consuming as it is in the early months and years. It does change in intensity and over time, and maybe we just learn to cope with it in different ways. But the reality is, grief is lonely, yes. That's a part of grief. But are you alone? Never. The lonely road of grief is well populated, and we all experience loss in our lives, and we need those around us that can say, I know it's a lonely road, but can I just walk alongside you, listen to you, and sit with you for a while?